With the rear of our buggy pretty much complete, we'll carry on with the front end, and although we've installed our suspension arms and sway bar, it's time for the front CVAs and hub carriers with the EB48 2.0 Bag H. This bag will be similar to Bag F, which included the rear hubs and links, although with a couple of slight differences due to the steering on the front end. But after this bag, we'll almost finish off the front end of the buggy. So in this bag we have some really nice parts. As with the rear, we have these newly designed CVA kits, which are a little bigger to help make the buggy last a bit longer. The spindles look pretty solid too, and we have the turnbuckles and all the other small hardware pieces to put together. We also have some nice aluminum caster blocks, again finished with precision and oozing high quality. Each is labelled according to whether it fits on the left or right side. Bear in mind, when looking at left and right, have the buggy facing forward or away from you, not towards you. Finally, with your grease and thread lock close by, we're ready to get started. Okay, we'll begin with our spindles, inserting a 6mm button head screw and washer into the side. This acts as the steering stop screw, so it's an important step. Next, we insert a flanged bearing to the front, a spacer in the middle, and a larger bearing into the rear, before repeating on the opposite side. Next we'll get our CVAs built, just like we did for the rear, nothing new here. Again repeat the process for both sides, and then go ahead and insert both into the spindles we've already prepared. I like to give both a turn, making sure they are completely free. Next we need to drop on one of the two 17mm wheel hexes onto the axle, making sure to align the holes, and insert a retaining pin. Again notice the pin has a flat edge in the middle. This needs to be facing outwards, so that we can insert a set screw to lock it into place. Remember to apply some thread lock to that set screw and tighten down. Again we repeat the same steps for the opposite side. And with that said, our front CVAs and spindles are complete. Both should turn completely freely with no binding whatsoever. We now need to attach our caster blocks before we install onto the front end assembly. Before doing that, insert two set screws loosely into the side of the spindle, top and bottom. Now with caster block in hand, we're starting with the right side here. Insert a small bearing into the top and bottom, then position the first spindle in between the caster block, and secure with a kingpin shoulder screw from the top, and the same on the bottom, taking care not to over tighten. We really don't want anything binding here, everything should remain completely free moving. We can then tighten the set screws, taking care not to over tighten though, just snug but not over tight. And now we're ready to get this side onto the front assembly. With the block in place on the suspension arm, insert a spindle carrier hinge pin into either side of the arm and into the caster block. Note that each hinge pin has a flat section at the end. Ensure this is facing outwards while inserting into position, since we now need to secure these into place using a pair of set screws going into the side of the caster block and locking the hinge pins into place. A little thread lock on each set screw as well, of course. It's the same on the opposite side. Prepare the caster block with bearings, position the spindle, install the kingpin shoulder screws, along with the set screws, and place into position on the opposite arm, before inserting a hinge pin on either side, and securing in place with the final set of set screws, complete with thread lock. The front end is really starting to take shape now. All that's left is to get the front camber links into position, although we need to build them first, so with a little grease on the threads, proceed to screw each turnbuckle into the rod end, again taking care not to go too far and create a dimple at the ball end. These need to have a 17mm gap, so try to be as precise as possible here. With both links created, insert a pivot ball into each rod end. I also tend to move the ball around once inserted just to make sure it's relatively free. If it's not, you could have screwed the turnbuckle in too far and created a small dimple in the plastic on the inside of the ball end, which you'll need to Dremel down. Although stick to the size guide and you should be good to go. Remembering that the notch always goes to the left side of the vehicle, line up the camber link on the inside of the buggy, inserting a 20mm caphead screw from front to back at either end. Stock position is centre holes on either side. Also remember to make sure the dog bone end of the drive shaft is seated within its cup. We can then tighten both screws into flanged lock nuts just so that they're snug. Repeat on the opposite side with the final camber link, and with that said, we're done with this kit bag. A quick final check to ensure everything is nice and free, which it is, no reaming or anything else necessary. You're seeing everything firsthand throughout this build. Nothing has been prepared off camera here, so as you can see everything is coming along super nicely. Both front and rear end are at the same stage now, arms attached, hubs and drive shafts in place, camber links in place, and all nice and smooth. Although we need to carry on with a few extra parts to the front assembly with our next bag in particular, the steering assembly.